Dark.
Welcome to Hacking Business Technology, a podcast about IT, hackbiztech.com. Today we've got our hosts. We're missing one host. Farah had a wedding to attend to. Maybe she'll dial in from her phone from the wedding. Give us one of those awkward selfies with the groom and bride up in front of everyone. Maybe not. Welcome to Mr. Matt Hooper, Mark Kawasaki, and our lovely guest today, Jamie Broadnax. Jamie's the founder and owner of @BlackGirlNerds, a Twitter account that I follow that's great about diversity in science and tech. She's actually the founder and she's actually a knowledge worker at a very well-known insurance company as well. So welcome, Jamie, to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Jamie.
So real quick, let's just talk about Black Girl Nerds. How did you come about owning this? What are you trying to do with it? What's a blurred? Give us the details.
Well, let's start off with what's a blurred. A blurred is the portmanteau term for black nerd, and it's a term that's helped foster this community together and to help everyone find one another in social media, in the online community. I started off with Black Girl Nerds just one night at 2 a.m. Going on Google and doing a search and wondering if there's any other websites out there that speak to women of my ilk. And I just Googled the term Black Girl Nerds, and nothing came up in Google.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, the world's largest search engine where you can find relatively anything under the sun, there was not an afterthought for that term. So it was that night that I just created a blog with that term just so I could put an indelible print in cyberspace.
That's perfect. I love that. You know, you look at shows like Silicon Valley and you look at the stereotypical nerds, and man, there's a whole lot of white people on that show.
Yeah. Whole lot of white people on that show, yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah,
go ahead, Mike.
I think there was, you have a podcast as well, right, Jamie?
Yeah. In addition to the website, there is a podcast that we broadcast on a weekly basis. Currently, it's on hiatus, but every Sunday night at 7 p.m., we have a podcast, and we use social media along with that podcast to garner fans, have live listeners. So we use the hashtag BGN Podcast on Twitter and do live tweets while the show is on the air.
Nice. Yeah, I was thinking of, there's so many things I wanted to talk to you about and ask you, and when I looked at your podcast, you've covered like every topic I could ever think of. One of them being, is nerdiness synonymous with whiteness, and I know you covered that. You covered a lot of great things with the Black Coders groups and, specifically tech jobs in general and diversity and how, you guys are able to come together as a community like that in the tech world. I mean, I'd like to know just what you've seen come of this, the communities that you've seen come together in the tech world, especially. What difference has it made, and what impact has it given to the community?
I think having the podcast, in addition to having the website talking about various subjects in the tech space, has helped create a lot of niche communities in social media. And it's also helped me be able to connect with other organizations that have been doing it already, but helping to amplify them. So I've been able to recognize nonprofit groups like Black Girls Code, that's created by Kimberly Bryant, Digital Undivided, that has a focus group every year in October that focus on Black women and diversity in coding and computer programming. So having this community has helped those organizations kind of get a little bit more recognition, because a lot of people in our community are in those tech spaces. So it's good to have podcasts talk about what it is to be a coder, and to have subjects and content on the website that talk about diversity in programming and in STEM fields.
Mm-hmm.
I never really fully appreciated the need for camaraderie in such an example as that until I was chatting with a client of mine, and she's become a good friend. She's a African American female who's in a leadership position, and she explained to me there's very few that are in that circumstance. It's so even in your forums, CIO forums, or even in your women IT groups, you're still the minority of the minority.
Right.
And it is one that that still they don't have a lot of bonding opportunity there. So it's been through her conversations I've had a better appreciation for when you step back and look at your perspectives on things. It's nice to have others who can relate to you as an individual, both from a gender and from a race, to understand your perspectives. And those perspectives usually are similar in a lot of ways because of that. And it was interesting, because I grew up in a fairly diverse area, so I didn't ever really note the predominance of white influence until I kind of got into the IT industry, and the male dominance until I got into the IT industry. So it was actually the role reversal for me, I think, from that perspective.
Yeah. I think, too, it's good to have a community, because there are a lot of women out there that work in these fields where it is dominated by white males, where they feel like they're the only one, they're alone. And then when you connect with a network where there's several other women that's in that same line of work that you're doing, then you're like, okay, I feel more comfortable in my space. I can be able to fellowship with these women and be able to talk about issues that I may not have been able to have, water cooler conversations with my coworkers with these women in these various groups. So it's good to have these kind of conversations in social media. And in addition to doing a podcast, I also participate in live chats on Twitter, one called Blurred Chat. So Dawn M. Gibson, she started that over a year ago, and every Thursday night at 8 p.m. we do a chat where we talk about what it is to be a blurred, what it is to be involved in various areas, where we talk about drones in one chat, we talk about Afrofuturism, and these chats I've noticed are happening a lot more in our community with Digital Undivided, the organization I mentioned before. They have a chat that they speak to women about, and there's several other organizations that are doing that. So it's good to have those live Twitter chats. It's good to have that kind of social engagement to help, bring these clusters of groups together.
Yeah, get people comfortable with who they are, where they are. That's really interesting. So what sort of advice would you give people in leadership positions, or even not in leadership positions? What advice would you give to people to have a positive influence on the tech and science industries, specifically for blurreds?
I think people in leadership positions should definitely take the initiative in reaching out and making sure that they help folks that may have a little bit of a more difficult time trying to get to a leadership position, because I've had my own personal struggles, I guess, if you will, with trying to move up the corporate ladder myself. And I think when you're in that role, you have a greater responsibility to try to be of service to other folks that are trying to get where you are. So even though I wouldn't deem myself necessarily as a leader, I still try to work to help other people to, bring their content that they share through, if they're like an author of a book or they're a comic book illustrator, and using that with my blog and using that as a platform to be sort of a conduit to get their works out there and seen.
Love it. Lead from the top down. Well, bottom up is what some people say, but I think it's top down in my opinion.
I think that's great, though. There's so many different kinds of privilege, and some people are just excluded from so many of those. Even being an introvert is a way that you have a barrier in front of you that a manager or a good leader can help draw people out. That's so important, for sure.
Love it. So let's talk about your day job just a little bit. You're an insurance adjuster.
Right.
How would you see your relationship with what you're doing to the technology that you're using? Are there ways that IT listens to you specifically to be better at what you're doing and make you more productive? What do you want from IT that you're not getting?
Well, in my job, I use a lot of systems. I think about 13 or 14 different systems all at once that I'm toggling through. So definitely tech has to be up to par with respect to speed, with respect to updating. We also use Cisco phone systems, so those have to be intact whenever we're receiving, numerous amounts of calls, especially when there was recently some hailstorms in Pennsylvania and South Carolina, so we get a lot of calls that day. So you want to make sure you have phone systems that are very reliable and that you can depend upon to be able to help customers when you're taking that first notice of loss.
Okay.
Do you feel like, your role as kind of a Black Girl Nerd spokeswoman at work makes an influence? I mean, do people know what you're doing kind of extracurricularly?
I consider myself like Clark Kent at work, and I'm Superwoman when I go home and work on the blog. So yeah, nobody knows about what I do at work. It's not because I'm trying to keep it separate. It's just that a lot of people, I think, at my job don't care. So they have families and they're into their own thing, but yeah, I keep them separate. So yeah, I play Clark Kent at work.
Okay.
Love it.
Wow.
So where can people go to find more information and help you out, support you?
Oh, well, the website is called Black Girl Nerd, so it's blackgirlnerds.com, and we're all over social media. At Black Girl Nerds is the Twitter handle, Facebook, Black Girl Nerds, Pinterest, Tumblr. So really now you can Google Black Girl Nerds and you will find us. And it's great. When I think about it, I'm like, wow, SEO-wise, that was actually kind of brilliant, because if you type it in Google, it's the first page that comes up.
There you go. Before you start up your next online community or next online social network, you should Google it and see if nothing comes up, and if it does,
create that name. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love what you said about niche communities, though, because I always feel like I would be most happy if any of my internal thoughts I could voice and someone would hear me and appreciate it. And everyone has so many different parts of themselves. It's best to find a community to share each of those areas with. And I mean, if I'm into anything, I don't know, underwater basket weaving, I want to find a community that I can connect with that on, so I'm not alone in any of those parts of myself. I think that's something everyone should think about at work or personally anywhere. And that's great. And it was great to hear how, the community itself, Black Girl Nerds, is kind of broad, but it can splinter into different focus areas as well, even within that community, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of the website, because it first started off with my personal musings, just me talking about being a nerd and things that I like that are of interest to me.
Blogging.
And then I had blogging, and then I had other contributors come in and say, hey, I want to share this opinion piece on the site. And now we have close to like 15 contributors, and it's all their own perspectives and thoughts of what it is to be a nerd and what it is to be in this culture. And it's beautiful because it's very diverse, and we talk about things not only just STEM and coding and tech fields, but then we talk about comic books, we talk about cosplay, and then we talk about relationships and natural hair. And so it's sort of this nice hodgepodge of what it is to be a nerd based on all of these different perspectives.
And it's authentic and real. Instead of media, spinning everything all the time.
I hate that. There's a post that I wrote about a year ago saying that I'm not built for conformity. I'm not built for it. I can't be phony, even if I try, which is very interesting. I actually used to work in the film industry, and I was around a lot of Hollywood people where they just kind of put on a facade to move up, and I can't do it. And that's why I haven't been successful at that.
Good for you.
Thank you.
I mean, one of the interesting things, and I'll say something perhaps a little not difficult to say, but just exposing a little bit here. It's when you're in IT and you're white and you're trying to build a community, it can be difficult because there's there's nothing that you can grab onto.
There's no niche. There's no character.
Right, exactly. And you see things fall apart. There's nothing to bring people together under one common cause, but it is great to see a community that's thriving, that you can learn from and learn how to bring together people in different ways, for sure.
I think, though, Mark, some of that has to come from, a perspective of, for Jamie, is because she is a woman of color and she's a female in an industry where that's not so prevalent. She doesn't go looking for it; it's all looking at her.
Sure.
Whereas you and I would go looking for it, I guess, in a way. I mean, at the same time, too, you find micro communities in everything. And I think what bonds it, and maybe Jamie, you can chime in on this. This is more a question: is what draws you there is if you are a innovator, you are a pioneer in any kind of perspective. You look for those who are also wanting to forge new trails and break new grounds. And just by the sheer nature of you being a certain type of person in a certain circumstance, whether it's a firefighter or a IT person or a doctor, the stereotypes everywhere. The male nurse industry. You might be a white male nurse. You're probably a minority in that world. So having just that group to bond onto is a little bit of a perspective that makes you feel comfortable, and that's a natural draw, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, I think, too, that it's not even necessarily having to go out and seek anything. I mean, we're here, but it's good to just open up and have these kind of conversations, and what you guys are doing now by talking about diversity in tech, to happen more often, where people can be open and have an honest dialogue about the disparities between people of color and white people in these tech fields, and why is there such a difference? Why is there such a disconnect? And to take that divide and essentially create, that digital undivide.
That's true. I mean, talking about diversity itself is a niche community, unfortunately.
Right.
I think what it mostly does, though, it brings attention to the outreach programs that can help. Like, I know I've been a member of SIM for many years, and Society for Information Management does a lot of outreach programs, particularly to the inner city, like Year Up and Teen Tech. There's Teen Tech Boston, which is mostly inner city kids. I volunteered just to take the inner city kids to go out and hit golf balls, because as an inner city kid, I didn't really hit a lot of golf balls. And most inner city kids don't hit a lot of golf balls. They don't have that experience. But when you get into IT and you get to a certain level in IT, golfing's kind of a fun thing to do. It takes you out of the office, gets you out there. So if they are exposed to it, it's just different, right? It's just a way to get them exposure that they would have never gotten before, and provide opportunities they would have never got before. And I think that's the root cause of it, is we don't have enough diversity in our industry because the investment hasn't necessarily been there, the focus necessarily hasn't.
Yeah,
right.
Invest in it. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good. Awesome. Well, that's Hacking Business Technology. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for being here. Thank you, hosts. Have a good week, everyone.
Thanks, Jamie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.